All right, so first I want to take a brief survey of the audience. By a show of hands, how many people know what Shopify is? You got pretty good brand recognition
Pretty
here,
good.
buddy.
Some of these guys work for me, so they better know what Shopify is.
They don't know. All right. So you got good brand awareness here. One thing I wanted to start out with is that your background is tech, obviously. You are sort of spearheading one of the largest, if not the largest, e-commerce providers in the world. But you are at a wholesale trade show where retailers are doing buys for a brick and mortar business. You're basically the enemy in this environment. You're basically enemy number one. So
Wow.
what are you doing here?
Yeah.
Are you here to just step on our necks and be like, your business is over, guys?
No, I actually, so a question that I get fairly often is retail dead? Is traditional retail dead? And actually I think the opposite. I think traditional retail is having its moment right now. I think what has happened is, if you sort of go back till the beginning of time, retail's been around for a very long time. In 1876, this guy named John Wanamaker created Wanamaker's Department Store. That was sort of the first time in the history of the world that a bunch of brands were under one single roof.
Right.
And my feeling is that retail has been pretty damn boring ever since 1876. It's been the same thing over and over again. And I think what started to happen about 10 years or so ago was that distribution on its own was no longer enough value for retailers to justify their margin. Mm-hmm. So what I mean by that is, as you know, we talked about boosted board, right?
Yeah.
I ride a boosted board to work most days. In the summertime, it's this amazing motorized skateboard. I have two options where I can buy that boosted board from. Option A is I can buy it from Best Buy, and I can ask a bunch of sales guys at Best Buy to explain the boosted board to me, and they're probably gonna have no idea what it does.
Right.
It's gonna be a really crappy experience. And Best Buy would justify the fact that they're charging me more money than I would pay on the boostedboard.com site because they have distribution, because they're in my city. Well, as a consumer, I actually do not believe that is value enough to justify charging me more money. Mm-hmm. So instead, I'll go to boostedboard.com and I'll buy directly from them. They make more money, I as a consumer pay less money, and I have a much better experience in general.
Yeah. And you learn better.
And I learn better because I can ask questions like, what is the range of the boosted board? How much battery does it need, or how long does it take to charge? I think that really is what happened 10 years ago. Is as consumers, we all sort of agreed as a community, if we're going to give a retailer additional margin on top of what we would give the maker, the creator, the manufacturer, they have to do something for us that justifies that margin. And I think a lot of retailers simply were not, and they went out of business.
Yeah.
What I'm seeing now is retailers that are doing a really good job, they're actually giving a much better experience. When I go buy my black t-shirts, I buy at a brick and mortar store. I walk in, and all these beautiful black t-shirts are spread out for me. They're already there in my sizes. They explain to me the new technology of the t-shirts. All this stuff is happening, which justifies me paying them a bigger margin. Uh-huh. And so I actually think retail is having an amazing time right now. And I think the retailers that have not succeeded are the ones that simply just didn't add any real value.
Where do you buy your black t-shirts from?
So two places. This is James Purse.
Okay.
And also a place called sonofatailor.com, which makes custom t-shirts. I'm kind of short and stocky, and so most t-shirts don't fit me. So sonofatailor.com, I can type in my dimensions, and I get a custom black t-shirt every week.
So you mentioned James Purse. Like when you go into the James Purse store, and you said you enjoy that.
I love the experience.
Does that translate then for you to want to be a James Purse online buyer?
It does, yeah. So the great part about James Purse for me is I walk in, let's say their LA retail store. They know who I am. They know that I'm not going to wear button-down shirts, so it's just t-shirts they have presented. But they also leave me with style numbers, which means that I, who live in Canada, where there's no James Purse store really, there's one in Toronto, but very small store, I can actually start buying way more t-shirts just because I have the style number.
Right.
So that experience for me is so fantastic. Now in the case of James Purse, they're also a manufacturer as well as a retailer, so they sort of combine both. But the retailers that I believe are going to be successful in the future will really understand that the consumer needs additional value add to take their margin.
Right. So let's go back to your background a little bit, because ironically, you actually have a t-shirt making background. You used to have a t-shirt brand back in the day.
Yeah.
Tell us about this t-shirt brand that you had.
So it wasn't a cool brand, nothing like yours and nothing like a lot of the brands here, but when I was in law school in the early 2000s, I had to support myself and didn't know how to do that. And so I decided that I would buy sub-licenses for t-shirts in very limited geographies. Batman, Spider-Man, Superman. and I would mock them up using a designer, and we would sell them. And actually, that is my foray into Shopify. I looked around for software on the market that would allow me to retail these t-shirts and sell online. And there were some companies like Yahoo stores, and which wasn't very good. Magento was really, really expensive, and
complicated.
You need to be an engineer to use Magento. And then I met Toby, who had just built the Shopify software to sell his own products, sell these snowboards. And I asked him if I can use the software, and I effectively became one of Shopify's first customers, and put myself through law school and business school selling t-shirts online. And then realized I do not want to be a lawyer. Lawyers, I thought, for the most part, are kind of boring, kind of a boring profession. And 9 years ago, I joined Shopify. We were just a handful of people, and the rest is history.
That's really smart, though. I want to just zoom in on that t-shirt business, because just to clarify what he did, you were licensing Batman, Superman, Spider-Man sort of marks, right? These are owned by Marvel, DC, and then you license them. But a lot of times these brands have them licensed in big regions.
Right.
You were finding little pockets of the country that didn't have coverage, and then you would just own it. So in like Timbuktu, wherever.
Exactly, yeah. So there's a lot of Timbuktu style places in Canada.
Yeah.
So what I would do is I would buy the rights, or the sub-rights to it in a very small geography where they had a movie theater but did not have a shopping mall.
Yeah.
So the presumption was, or at least the strategy at the time, was that if a kid goes to see a movie, a Dark Knight movie, comes home and says, "Mom, I want this t-shirt," Mom knows there's no shopping mall around, goes online, searches for Batman t-shirt. Through AdWords, I would come up first, and that's how we built the t-shirt. And it was kind of like licensing arbitrage, I guess. But at the time, I was 21 years old. It ended up working.
Yeah.
I put myself through school.
You're totally reverse engineering the demand process.
That's exactly right, yeah.
That's smart.
Yeah.
And you came from Florida, you mentioned,
I did,
right? Yeah, Boca Raton.
Yeah.
Tell us about your background there. Did you come from like an affluent family that was into coding and tech, or like, what was the upbringing like?
No, nothing like that at all. I was born in Montreal, in Canada. I don't know if there's any Canadians here. I see a couple. Yeah, all right, go Canadians. And we're a little bit timid and humble.
Yeah,
so
there's more. There's more here. They're
Scream,
just not cheering.
When I was a kid, my parents moved to South Florida, and we moved to a particular geography area in South Florida called Boca Raton, because it had one of the best public schools in the nation. But my parents didn't have very much money, and so they actually bought kind of the smallest house in the area, which would allow me to go to that particular public school, and ended up going to this great public school. But I kind of grew up as a hustler. I started this t-shirt company, put myself through law school, but I started a DJ company when I was a kid, DJing bar mitzvahs and weddings. I had a bunch of other side hustles along the way. But entrepreneurship was always the thing I wanted to do. I always felt that entrepreneurship was kind of the best form of self-actualization. I could make money, I can have fun, I can build a brand for myself, I can be passionate. And for me, that was everything. And now with Shopify, we've helped more than 500,000 entrepreneurs build their own businesses. And I know a bunch of you said you guys know Shopify, but how many in the room actually use Shopify? Right?
Wow.
Like that makes me incredibly proud. That is
awesome.
That's the coolest thing for me. And
I want to touch on Shopify as a brand really quick, because a lot of these people know Shopify, use Shopify, but a lot of the customers, when they say I want to buy X, Y, and Z, they're not like, go to the Shopify site, right? They don't know what Shopify is at all.
Yeah, we're not a
totally
marketplace.
invisible.
We're not a,
Yeah, is that a deliberate action by the company to stay invisible?
It is. So we are not a brand to consumers. We are a brand to retailers. We're a brand to merchants. We're a brand to creators, a brand to creatives, a brand to people like you. And we're behind the scenes. In fact, most of you shop at a Shopify store on a daily or weekly basis without even knowing it.
Yeah.
And that is completely on purpose. We want to be a brand behind the brand. Now, that is changing a little bit in that we released something called Frenzy recently, which is, you guys know Frenzy? Show of hands.
Who knows Frenzy?
Yeah.
All right.
So Frenzy,
we're going to talk on Frenzy.
Talk about Frenzy in a bit. Frenzy is this amazing new thing that it's a new product from ours. So Frenzy is one of the first times that Shopify is actually getting in front of the consumer.
Right.
That wasn't happening before. So there's a little bit of us flirting with being a consumer brand, but we want to be behind the scenes. We want you guys to be successful. We want you guys to be the brand. We just want to help enable you to do that.
So now going back in time again, when you joined up with Toby, what challenges did Shopify have back then? Because I remember, talking as a brand that was trying to get into e-commerce back in the day, I was trying all the ones you mentioned. I tried Yahoo, I tried a little bit of eBay, I tried Big Cartel. And I remember in doing that, I kept thinking, why can't someone just freaking figure this out so that it like works smoothly? Like it's not, I mean, it is rocket science because it's literally coding, but you want the transaction to be as smooth as possible so it doesn't feel like rocket science, right? How did you guys, like, what were some of the challenges and how did you cross them?
You know what, I think the difference between our piece of software versus the others on the market was that we are retailers, we're merchants first and foremost.
Yeah.
Shopify is a software we ourselves wanted to use. And then
Right.
once we realized that, hey, this is a really good software, it's easy to use, it's really scalable, easy to customize, maybe other people would want to use it as well, that's when we took it to market. But I think that is the main difference. It's not that we're any smarter or any more clever than others. It's that we bring an empathy to it that I think most software companies do not have. Look, IBM has an e-commerce package. SAP has one. So does all these big software, massive companies, these hegemonies. Right. They all have e-commerce divisions, and I don't think any of them have even tried to build their own online store.
No.
Whereas for us, Shopify came out of this frustration where we ourselves were looking for good software. We wrote this software, and then we realized that other people may want it as well. I think it has to do with empathy.
Right. Those companies have never sold a thing in their life.
and they don't actually know about the trials. How many of you, be honest, how many of you have ran your business sitting in your car or in the bathroom? Right? Like, that's a real thing. And so that means that when the Shopify app, you get that cha-ching sound, it has to work really well. It has to be super intuitive. You can't wait 3 weeks to understand how to fix something. It has to work as well as all your other tools do, if not better. And I think that is the big difference between Shopify and most other software packages.
That cha-ching sound is so satisfying.
It's cool, right? You guys know what I'm talking about, that cha-ching sound? There's nothing like it. It's the best thing in the world.
It doesn't even matter how little the dollar amount is. It's just like, like a little fist
I'll
bump
tell you a funny
time.
story, and I'm not trying to name drop, but it's a real story. And some of you may know Marshawn Lynch, Beast Mode.
Yeah.
MVP, Super Bowl MVP, amazing football player for the Oakland Raiders. I talk to Marshawn pretty often. I kind of do tech support for him just via text message. And this is a guy who has tens of $1 million contract. But when his $17 T-shirt sells and he hears that cha-ching sound, the guy lights up. I mean, the guy's got the most ridiculous contract in the NFL, and that $17 cha-ching is the best thing for him when he hears it.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yep.
I love that.
Was there ever a moment where you had to wait for the technology to catch up to your ideas that you had? For instance, Frenzy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of technology in Frenzy.
Yeah, there is.
Did you have to wait for it?
A little bit. So timing is important, but so is product market fit. Some of you may have seen, we put out something in partnership with Apple called, there's a store in the States called Magnolia. Magnolia is this really cool store. They sell kind of home furnishings. And if you download the Magnolia app, you'll see that using augmented reality, I just showed you backstage, you can literally place the products in your home or in your office, and you can see what the products look like. That is something now that's becoming really popular. But we've been working on augmented reality and virtual reality for years now. We've had a team inside of Shopify. And only now do we see people requesting this augmented reality capabilities. Right. I even think VR still is not fully understood yet, but we have a team inside of Shopify that's thinking about virtual reality. So a lot of the stuff we're working on is not ready to be put out to the market yet, but the second it is, we'll be the first to do it.
Yeah.
We were working on social media integrations well before we announced the Instagram channel or the Facebook channel, because we knew that intuitively entrepreneurs are eventually going to want to sell on Instagram and Facebook. And even though Facebook and Instagram weren't ready for that at that point, the second they were, we became the launch partner because we had already built most of the stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah, people were praying for so long that Instagram would turn on the shop.
Exactly. Everyone was going link in profile, go to the profile,
every hack possible.
And now you can buy directly from Instagram with Shopify. That's really neat.
Yeah. All right, so you also write a retail trend blog it's a blog, right, for Forbes magazine that gets a lot of readers. So I want to break down a little bit about what you see that's happening in retail right now. And there's a couple of points, and some of them are sort of hot topics that are going on right now. But if you have a retail store, what do you need to be doing to making yourself stay relevant? Assuming you have e-commerce built in, but you want to keep that brick and mortar experience going, what do you have to do?
So I think the biggest trend in retail, and it sounds almost stupid because it's so simple, is that up until very recently, from the early days of retail, 1,000 years ago, it was all about retailer choice. What I mean by that is the retailer was dictating to the consumer how to make the purchase. If the retailer said, line up at 8 a.m. in the morning on a Saturday morning to get this video game, you did it. If the retailer said you can't buy offline, you have to buy online, you did it. Whatever the retailer dictated is what the consumer did.
Right.
How many of us, when we were kids, used to run to the video game store with our moms or dads to grab the last video game off the shelf because if we didn't get it, we weren't getting the video game.
Yeah.
That's basically how retail operated for hundreds of years. It was the retailers dictating to the consumer. The biggest shift in retail, forget experiences, forget activations, forget pop-ups. The biggest change that's happened in the last couple of years is now, I think retail is all about consumer choice. For the first time ever, the consumer is saying, I want to buy it this way. I want to buy online, pick up in store. Or I want to buy in store and have the product shipped to me. Or I want to use Frenzy, or I want to buy on Pinterest. Or I'm browsing on Houzz. I want to buy it on Houzz at the same time as I'm browsing on Houzz. So I think that is the big number one trend that we are seeing. And the stores that are successful have a deep understanding that it's all about what the consumers want, not what you think the consumers want.
Right.
That's the first piece.
And I think people tend to forget that in the olden days, we were very much like sheep. When you walk into a department stores, if you walk into Macy's or something, if they have red button-down shirts, you're more likely to buy the red button-down shirts because somebody decided that that's the first thing you're going to see. Now you say, no, I want blue sweatpants, and you go find it.
That's right. I don't wear button-down shirts, so showing me button-down shirts is not going to convert me.
Right.
But Macy's, or whoever we're talking about here, should know that every single day of my life, I wear a black t-shirt, jeans, and laceless Chucks.
Yeah.
So if I'm walking to their store, and they know that I'm coming, and there's 100 different ways they can anticipate my coming to the store, that's what they should show me.
Yeah.
Right? So, but getting back to the retail trend report, one thing that I am seeing that is becoming really, so if you agree with me that the future of retail is all about consumer choice, a couple retailers decided years ago, maybe we'll start making more experience-based shopping experiences. So we'll put a DJ in our store.
Right.
And if you're selling a certain type of product, putting a DJ in your store makes a lot of sense. It makes the experience better for the consumer. But I'm now seeing everybody put DJs in their store who should not be doing that. That is cargo culting. That is the wrong idea. So first of all, I am seeing some cargo culting happening, and I think that's a bad thing. I think we should avoid that.
Why do you call it cargo culting?
It's actually a term from I think from the 50s, where after World War II, this is a super weird aside, and I'm digressing, but after World War II, a bunch of native populations in the Pacific, they would see airplanes descend down, and then these Americans would come and they would get rid of the war, right? They fight the wars. Well, after the Americans left after World War II, they started making their own wooden airplanes because they thought if they had wooden airplanes, the Americans would come and actually also fix the war or stop the fighting. Obviously, they weren't airplanes that would ever fly. They were just these wooden airplanes. That's called cargo culting.
Okay.
And so that's what I'm seeing right now in retail. I'm seeing that these retailers are just basically doing the same thing every other retailer is doing, despite the fact that they have a totally different demographic and a different consumer base.
The other one is the barista. Every store needs to have a barista now.
So some stores should have a barista, but not every store, right?
Yeah.
And so that, I think, is something that we should all avoid. A couple of trends that I am seeing that I think are really great. First of all is the fact that looking at your retail shop showrooming is not a new thing, but if you listen to some of the earnings calls of these very large publicly traded retailers, you'll hear something fascinating, which is that they separate their business between online and offline. Mm-hmm. And actually, they believe they compete with each other.
Yes.
That's ridiculous. The stores, I think, are doing really well, understand that maybe my physical retail store, it's just a showroom, or just a place to engage with salespeople in your brand.
Right.
Maybe it's just a place that you can go hang out with the designers behind the brand. I think the idea of actually calling these separate retail channels is kind of silly. It's all just retail, and whether you sell online or offline, or you only sell on Instagram, it doesn't really matter. It's all part of the same ecosystem.
It doesn't matter where the transaction takes place, as long as it happens.
That's right. I think that does really well. The second thing I think that's happening in retail that's kind of cool is a lot of this customization.
Yeah.
So, years ago, you used to walk into a Ralph Lauren store and they'd put your initials on the polo. Right. That was kind of cool. But the fact that all my T-shirts now have my initials embossed in there, this is James Purse, it doesn't, but all my Son of a Tailors do, that's kind of neat, right? That's a nice value add. Or the fact that they know that every winter season, I live in Canada, I need a really warm winter coat. So around October, they're showing me the right products given the climate of the environment I live in. That also is a great experience also. I think the customization stuff is getting really great. Yeah,
definitely. Where's that going to go, you think? Because now you have Nike allowing you to make your own shoes in a relatively short amount of time. Do you think it's just going to become to the point where you could just make one-off individuals for yourself?
One-off individuals are really, really tough, as you know, right, to do. But I think there is a way to do it. I think there is a way to do it in a better way. So, for example, the store that I'm buying my black T-shirts from has all my dimensions. It behooves them to now show me a hoodie with the same dimensions. Now I get a custom hoodie. Right. So there are ways to add customization where you don't have to do one-offs, which would be really prohibitively expensive.
Yeah. We spoke about mobile a little bit, but how do you feel about people who go into your brick and mortar store, look around, and then price compare on a mobile device? That's, I think, one of the biggest complaints of brick and mortar retailers.
Yeah. So a couple things. I think if they're price comparing to a competitor of yours and they're leaving the store and buying from the competitor, that's really bad. But there are a couple ways you can fix this. So for example, if you come into my store and you see a T-shirt and you take a picture of it, or you look at the barcode and you price compare it, and you find it cheaper elsewhere. But if I give you a 20% coupon code right then and there to get you to convert at that moment,
you're probably going to stay.
You're probably going to stay, right? Or if I bundle that one T-shirt with 3 other products that you can't get at that price comparison, maybe you'll stay as well.
Right.
And so I think there is a way to actually fight that, to fight someone leaving your store and buying elsewhere.
Yeah.
But I think you got to be creative about it. I think the other thing that, again, physical retailers often worry about is, am I becoming a showroom for somebody else? Right? That also is not that great. But again, if you add value beyond just the fact that you have a physical store, if there's entertainment in there that is relevant to that audience, if there is a salesperson there who is so deeply knowledgeable about what you're actually doing,
you just feel like
you're going to stay there. You're going to stay there. I've been a tech guy for most of my life, but I still like going into physical retail stores when the experience is really fantastic.
Yeah.
Where I don't like it is where they just don't care. They're just selling something that I can get elsewhere. There's no value add, yet they still believe that they should have a profit margin.
Yeah, and I would argue that if you are actually throwing all of these amazing efforts at that customer and they still walk out because they want to save 10 cents, that might not be a customer you want.
That's right, exactly. Maybe it's a bad customer.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's go long ball a little bit, like 5 to 20 years out.
Sure.
Because we have some things happening with like the malls of America. We have trade shows, we have ComplexCon. Do you think these are all intertwined in some way? Like, is ComplexCon the new mall?
Look, ComplexCon is pretty amazing. And people pay $200 to go to a place to shop. Think about that.
Imagine that, yeah, like.
They pay to get in to shop.
To spend more money.
To spend more money, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So I don't think actually there's too many malls. I actually think there's not enough bulldozing of malls.
So you want malls going away?
No, I don't want malls going away. I think there's a place for malls. Some malls have a great experience, well-curated stores, great lighting, great atmosphere. But then I also go to some malls and they deserve to get bulldozed because there's absolutely no creativity there. There's a lack of energy. It's almost like it's an energy vampire to me.
Yeah.
It sucks the life out of me. So I think there is a place for it, but I think that ComplexCon has become a mall in some ways.
Right.
It's just a new version of that. So have trade shows. I think what's really important is that they don't just use the same model over and over again, but they actually rethink the model in a way that is a lot more in line with what their consumers want. Again, going back to consumer choice. I'm asked 100 times a day, what is the future of retail? The future of retail is all about what the consumer wants. That's it.
Yeah, which has always been.
Which has always been.
Yeah.
The difference was consumers did not have enough power to actually convince the retailers to change their model.
Yeah.
So I think there's going to be a place for great malls. In Boca Raton, as we were talking about earlier, there's a mall called Boca Town Center. It's a well-curated mall. In there, there's not just shops, there's yoga studios, there's great food, there's art, there's artist installations. It's an experience to go into it.
Yeah.
But there are malls that I've been to that there's no life to it.
Right.
The salespeople there do not want to be there. They want to kill themselves.
Yeah.
And that is not good. So I think there is certainly a place for it, but I just think these mega malls are just not, if they're not going to change, they're going to go out of business.
I'm scared this is going to prompt malls to start charging admission fees now.
You know what? If they can get away with charging admission fees,
maybe that's the way, because then you have to build something to make it deserving.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think these trade shows that charge consumers money to get in there, because once you get in there, you see stuff that you wouldn't otherwise see, is a testament that retail is having a moment.
Yeah.
The problem is, if you don't understand where retail is going, you sort of feel like it's passing you by, or you feel like, no, retail sucks. It doesn't. It's amazing. You just have to find what works for you. And you kind of have to try a bunch of stuff. And that actually is the best part of online retail for me, is that the cost of failure in online retail is trending towards zero. You can try something on your site, and if it works, great, you scale it. If it doesn't work, you shut it down.
Yeah.
But if you have this big, massive Costco-style store, and you want to paint the walls pink, and it doesn't work, it's going to be really expensive to go back to gray,
yeah,
right? So this idea that you can play with things, you can experiment, and the ones that work you can scale, the ones that don't you can get rid of.
Right.
That is fairly democratizing.
Yeah. Definitely.
I also think that, going back to what we said, I think that brands can now go direct to consumer, do it online. That is something that didn't exist 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
You had the luxury brands, the Louis Vuitton, the Gucci's, that did go direct to consumer, but they had massive payrolls. They had massive investment into them. Whereas now, some kid living in some random city in America can make a t-shirt, post it to Instagram, which is free, set up a store on Shopify, which is like $29, it's almost free, and can have a massive audience.
I know, it's crazy.
That is amazing. That is the future of retail right there. And that kid never would have had a chance before. That kid 20 years ago would have to beg some buyer at, Urban Outfitters, please put my stuff on the shelf.
Yep.
And Urban Outfitters may say yes or may say no. And if they say yes, they're going to take 50% margin or more.
Yeah.
That's the democratization of entrepreneurship and retail.
I know.
And I think that's fantastic.
I met a designer the other day, and he was showing, and I was like, when did you start your brand? How long have you been around? He's like, I started my brand on Saturday. I was like, what the fuck?
That's amazing. Right?
I know. He's like, I just set up an Instagram account, set up a Shopify store, and now I'm in business.
That is really cool. And the great part about that is, it doesn't mean that some of the more established brands are at a disadvantage. It actually means the more established brands need to start acting more like that kid.
Yeah.
That kid who's trying a bunch of stuff out. He's nimble, he's agile, he's trying different channels to figure out what works. I think a lot of the bigger brands can actually learn from him.
Or hire him, or buy him.
Or buy him, yeah.
Right. All right, let's talk about another service that you added recently to address a lot of the issues that me and my ilk have, which is, I don't know, show of hands, who's gone through this? You go online, you try to buy a pair of kicks, and something doesn't work in the checkout process. Who's taken an L on a sneaker release in this room? All right, so you invented this thing called Frenzy.
Yeah, I did it. Shopify did.
I know.
Yeah,
You can't take credit for everything.
We got a big team. They're amazing.
But Frenzy seems to be something, even by the name, I feel like it was sort of catered to the streetwear sneakerhead community, maybe. I mean, was that the first customer that you tried to address with that? So
this is something that I think every single one of you can use, no matter what industry you're in. 4 times a year, Shopify shuts down for 2 days. Our software is still up, our support is still up, but most of us stop working on our normal day jobs for 2 days. We call it hack days. And the entire company can work on anything they want for those 2 days.
Back to back?
Back to back.
Okay, cool.
So it's a Thursday and a Friday.
Nice.
The only condition is Thursday morning, you have to get into a group of people that you don't normally work with, so people that may work in a different team. You have to come up with a concept, and by Friday at 5 p.m., you have to ship it. Whatever it is, you got to put it out there. You got to put it into production.
Uh-huh.
And about 1.5 years or 2 years ago, a small team of people decided that these were people that love sneakers. They were sneakerheads. They love fashion. They love these drops.
And they were taking a lot of L's.
And they were taking a lot of L's. But actually, worse than the losses they were taking was that it was the bots.
Yeah,
they were getting in line really early, hitting refresh, and some bot would like swoop in and grab their sneakers.
Yeah.
And they hated that. And so for hack days, they figured out a way to actually build this thing called Frenzy on top of Shopify to make drops and make flash sales more fair, where bots cannot actually do it. And that was the whole idea was get rid of the bots, make these big flash sales more fair for people that really care about it.
Yeah.
And that was it. It was a hobby for us. And then people started asking us if they've heard about the hobby. They started asking if they can use it. And great brands like Union LA and Billionaire Boys Club and these amazing brands started doing it. And what ended up happening was it turned out that it's not just bots that was the problem. A lot of these brands that were doing these big drops, these limited edition releases, they also wanted to ensure that their best customers, their most loyal customers, their fan base, their ambassadors, they're the ones that got the products.
Right.
But it was impossible to do it in an online context. You can do it offline, but then you have people waiting in line in the middle of the wintertime in New York City or something, around the corner, they're sleeping in tents. There must be a better way to do it.
Yeah.
And so Frenzy began to evolve quite a bit from that point. And then people started saying, well, can I create drop zones? geofences, meaning, excuse me, you could only actually, you can only buy the product, get in line for the product if you're in a particular physical location.
Right.
And so you had people that actually said, you have to meet in this park in order to qualify for this release, for this drop zone.
Or at ComplexCon.
Or ComplexCon, we did exactly. We gave away, how many of you were at ComplexCon this year? So you guys see the bed at the BBC booth? It was the rocket ship bed. Well, if you were in a particular area in ComplexCon, we put it on Frenzy, and someone actually were able to buy that bed at ComplexCon.
Yeah.
That is freaking amazing.
Right.
So not only have you now made drops and these limited edition releases more fair, you've also made sure the right people buy it, people that are really your fans, and you can also engage with them in an offline context, even though it's an online brand.
Yeah.
That is pretty amazing. And Frenzy is, it's going really well. Is Roble in the room right now? Is he here? There's Roble. He's actually the guy running Frenzy. If you guys have any questions, go talk to him. He's amazing, and he's doing, I think we have a couple releases coming up today. I think we have on Saturday, we have a BBC release, don't we? Yeah.
Wait, so does that mean he gets like every shoe that comes? No, just kidding.
Yeah.
He gets them all.
What's up? Adidas? What's that? You heard what they say?
Off the hook.
Oh, Off the Hook and Adidas on Saturday, yeah.
Right.
So, by the way, download the Frenzy app. It's really cool. You'll see all the releases there. But
we did a drop on Frenzy, and it was super smooth.
Cool?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yes. But if you haven't tried Frenzy, try it. But forget Frenzy itself. That is where technology is not your enemy. That's actually where technology can make retail, commerce, fashion, brands much better.
Yeah.
And so hopefully I'm not your enemy. Hopefully actually I'm your BFF, because I think we can provide so many of you and your brands and your companies with a way to sell more, where your audience is happier, and it's just easier for everyone, and your stuff doesn't get flipped on eBay 20 minutes later, which kind of sucks.
Right. All right, let me ask you a real deal question here. So Nike and Adidas, these companies have their own versions, like Sneakers app, Confirmed app, right? These are like $30, $50 billion companies, and Nike is notorious for having bots attack their shopping experience, and you can't get it in like 1 second after it drops, right? Or the site crashes, it can't process all the transactions. Is it really true that a company the size of Nike can't figure this out? Is it really that challenging? Or is it a marketing play for them to cause delays on purpose?
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to Nike's marketing strategy. What I can tell you is that we at Shopify, we were forged in the fires of new retail. Like, we were born in this new retail environment.
Right.
And so one of our stores that you may know is Kylie Cosmetics.
Okay, Kylie Jenner's cosmetics.
Kylie Jenner's cosmetics companies. And we would never tell anyone's store sales, but she's come out recently and said she's done about $400 million in cosmetics, which is pretty amazing.
And which I can assume is more tubes of lipstick than Air Force Ones.
Yes, exactly. That's right.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
it is.
So it doesn't matter what the thing is, but transactionally, it's more transactional.
Yeah, she's selling a lot of lipstick.
Yeah, okay.
Well, the reason she came to Shopify was she was with one of these big companies, so I won't say their name. I don't embarrass them. And it's a big company. Was bigger than Shopify at the time. We're now bigger, I think, but it was bigger than Shopify at the time. And she kept crashing it. It was because these big software companies did not anticipate these massive flash sales happening online, where Kylie can put out one snap or one Instagram post, and millions of people all descend at the very same second to buy her lip kit. I assume Nike is in a similar situation where it's not that they couldn't do it, they probably could if they spent time on it, but Nike was born decades ago, right? And so I don't think they ever anticipated that social media and the hype cycle would work in the way that it has. Whereas because Shopify, we were forged in the fires of this new retail model, it's a lot easier for us to anticipate this.
They're sort of playing catch up to
Exactly.
it. Right.
Now, can they do it? Absolutely. But we're already doing it because we always anticipated that you will have millions of people at the same time trying to check out for the same product. And that's the way we built our software.
Right.
We have multi-tenant architecture, which means that Shopify can handle the biggest flash sales on the planet.
Yeah. Well, at least they could still make a better shoe than you guys.
Maybe. I don't make shoes. Yeah, I wear chucks. So I'm kind of
make those.
That. Yeah.
Isn't it crazy how, Shopify as a company is built on sort of like very nerdy technology, but then it takes someone like a Kylie Jenner to push you guys to like the brink of your coding experience. There's like a really cool dichotomy there of like...
And that goes back, that goes full circle to the question you asked earlier. we want you and all of you to create the coolest products in the world. The coolest gear. We're obviously at an apparel show, but whatever you're building, make it. If you're a maker, if you're building snowboards or skateboards or hoodies, do that. And then rely on us to focus on all the technology. We will take care of the back end. We'll take care to make sure that it's always up and running, that all your customers can check out when they want, how they want. We will make sure that when new opportunities to sell are available, whether it's Instagram, or it's using Apple Pay to check out, or it's Frenzy, we will bring all of that to you, so all you need to focus on is building your brand and making cool products.
Word.
And I think the difference is, Jeff Staple 30 years ago would have to also be, you'd have to be a designer, you'd also have to be a little bit of a technician, you'd also have to have a massive tech team. And what we're trying to do is we want to democratize all of this so you can just focus on making really, really cool gear, and we'll take care of everything else.
Right.
That's kind of our jam.
Are you glad you're out of the licensed t-shirt business now?
Yeah, I wasn't a very good retailer. But again, it was a great experience for me. And I would say that one of the reasons I'm able to run a company like Shopify at this massive scale is that I actually know what it's like to run a retail business.
Yeah.
I get it. I understand what it's like when your manufacturer, ships you the goods and one in every four, are ripped or something,
right.
or the flash wasn't done properly on the screen print,
right.
or USPS all of a sudden doesn't ship it at the right time for you. I know what that's like. I have that empathy, and I think that makes us a better company.
Right. All right. Well, thank you very much. Give them a round of applause, please.
Thank you, guys.
We can open it up to a little bit of Q&A. We have some time for Q&A.
Yeah, we got some
Just
microphones.
raise your hand and we'll have a microphone passed to you. Anyone have any questions?
Right over there.
Hello?
Yes.
My name is Alex. We have an online e-commerce store, Proud Angeles.
Hold it up to your... yeah.
We have an online e-commerce store called Proud Angeles. You were talking earlier about ComplexCon, and it's crazy how they build this hype to get people to pay to just shop. How do you think they build such hype like that?
How do they build it?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be curious to hear what you think, but I think one of the things they do is they give you an experience that you can't get anywhere else. I can actually go and buy a shirt from the guy that actually made the shirt, that designed the shirt. I can engage with that designer. So if I'm really passionate about a particular brand, there's very few places that I can go and engage with that level of intensity than a place like ComplexCon. I also think the fact is we certainly live in a culture where people want something, they want the newest thing the fastest. Everyone wants to be an influencer, and I think ComplexCon gives regular people the ability to become an influencer for $200. Pretty good deal.
Yeah, and I think the curation of it is really key too, because you're never going to get one kid who loves everything, right? Like there's a Nike head and then there's an Adidas head, and they don't like each other. But if you get both of them and they're doing amazing things, and then you multiply that by 500 brands, 20 speakers, 20 performers, you pretty much cover the whole base. So I think that's why they win. Cool. What other questions? Right here in the front.
How's it going? I'm Nathan Resnick. I actually run Sourcify. We manufacture for a lot of brands and Shopify stores. It's called Sourcify.
Say that one more time.
Nathan Resnick, and I run a platform called Sourcify, and we manufacture for a lot of Shopify and retailers. And we see this kind of dynamic between retailers and brands, where you have retailers like Movement Watches and Allbirds that are taking the DTC approach and cutting out the retailers. And you have retailers that are going direct to factories and creating their own private label brands. What do you think kind of the future of that dynamic is?
Yeah, I think some brands lend themselves really well to going direct to consumer. Absolutely. I think other brands just don't. I think other brands actually need an intermediary to help the purchase get better, right? So there may be brands that make the most, I'm using t-shirts just because I wear black t-shirts so often, so I keep repeating the same example, but there may be a t-shirt company who just is so technical about the poly cotton mix, and they've made the most beautiful t-shirt. But maybe they can't merchandise it well. Maybe they can't market it really well. In that case, I think that manufacturer, that maker or brand should team up with a really great retailer who can actually help convert those browsers into shoppers. In other cases, I think there are makers and brands and manufacturers who simply can go direct to consumer because they can do all that themselves. The caution is a lot of makers are now trying to be everything to everyone. I think there are certainly some brands who will make way more money, sell way more product, have a much larger brand if they work with a really talented retailer. But going back to that Boosted Board example, Boosted Board should be selling the boards themselves because Best Buy is not doing a good enough job adding additional value to that process for me as a consumer.
I have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
So you know how there's a lot of e-commerce companies that are born on e-commerce, and then now they're opening up brick and mortar stores. Warby Parker, Bonobos, Away Travel, right? These guys are like, they start online, now they're opening brick and mortar. Do you think it's easier to go from e-commerce to brick and mortar, or start as a brick and mortar and then go e-com?
It's funny. So, by the way, that's a super fascinating question because never before has anyone done it that way. Like, it was always start offline, move online.
As a real brand and then go online.
This is a brand new thing in the last couple of years where people have this great online store and they're like, I'm also going to have a brick and mortar store as well. Actually, I think it works better starting online than moving offline because I think actually you brought up Warby Parker or their luggage company. Away. I travel a lot as you do. I actually want to feel the luggage.
Yeah.
Right? So I would go to Away and buy the luggage, but I actually want to feel the tactility of it.
Yeah.
So I think for Away or for Warby Parker has basically said, look, come into our store to feel the glasses or to get your eyes checked.
Yeah.
But please, all day long, go ahead and buy it online.
Right.
So actually, I think that if you start online, you're able to figure out, if I could meet my customer base in person, what would I do for them? And then you can do that through a pop-up.
Yeah.
But I think if you start offline, it's really difficult to do it the other way.
Yeah. All right, any other questions?
Okay. Hi, my name is Sarah Baker. I'm a designer for a brand called We the People. And I just have a question, a part of the design process. Do you ever get to the point where you are a little less creative one time with one of your projects, or you're kind of stuck in the creative phase? My more direct question is, what do you do to kind of keep yourself creative and continue that creative design process?
That's for you, man.
Okay. I think you're talking about like basically writer's block for a creative, right? Yeah, we hit that all the time, and I think the best way to do that is to walk away from the thing that you're trying to solve. You know, like I like to just take a walk or travel. Like when I say travel, I mean like just do a quick day trip or something like that. I find that when I'm not thinking about the solution, that's when the solution hits. This is kind of embarrassing, but I actually have a waterproof notebook, like a notepad in my shower with a pencil that I can write on, because I get so many ideas while I'm taking a shower that I had to buy this like waterproof notepad in my shower.
I love that.
And I have refills of it too, because it's like the ideas are just pouring out, because those are the 10 minutes where I'm just like not thinking about a solution to a problem, you know? So I would say just walk away from the thing that you're trying to think about. And get that notebook. Any other questions?
It's time for one more, I think.
Hello? Hi, my name is Trina Ambers, and I'm here with my partner. We're in a startup phase. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. With Shopify, there are so many back-end applications that you can choose from for operations purposes. So how do you go about selecting those back-end apps?
There are a lot.
Are there advisors or consultants to guide you through that?
So there are. So we have a massive community of partners all over the world in over 100 countries who can help you figure out what apps you want, or even help you build your online store. In fact, if you go to experts.shopify.com, you'll see a curated experts.shopify.com, you'll see a curated database of our best partners. But the one thing to understand about Shopify, which I think makes this really unique, is that Shopify's core offering does what most people need most of the time. And for everything else, things that are specific to your business, those are all going to be apps. And the reason we chose that methodology of building software, as opposed to the other methodology, which is like the Microsoft Word, Microsoft Word processor philosophy, which is let's give everyone everything and let them figure it out, is because we want to make the important things easy and everything else possible. So, for example, one of the most popular apps we have for bigger merchants is something called, it's a tax compliance app called Avalara. Well, when you're just starting out, you do not need cross-border tax compliance. So if we built that into Shopify, all it would do is make your life more difficult. So instead what we do is we make it really simple to get started. And as you decide you want to add new functionality, you can just simply add apps really easily. And that's kind of our internal philosophy. But One way you can do it is you can just call Shopify and ask one of the gurus to suggest a few apps. Another way to do it, because you're here, is we have a Shopify booth right outside there, and I have an amazing team, and you should ask them for some help on that. They'd be willing to help you, I'm sure.
All right, well, we're out of time. Thanks a lot for everything. Yeah,
Appreciate it.
this is awesome.